When it comes to adjusting to disability, do the specifics of a person's disability really matter? I'm talking about when it comes to living your life, finding meaning and purpose. Personally, I think these are things we all desire, not based on our so-called race, economic status, or ability, but rather our humanity. My final guess in this second-to-last episode of The Art of Adjustment, where we continue to highlight the role art plays in that process, is filmmaker Andres Molina.
Well, everybody calls me Jay, 46-year-old Spanish man, light skin, wearing a Vegas Raiders hoodie and hat. My pronouns are he, him.
Welcome to Read My Mind Radio. I'm Thomas Reed, your host and producer. This may be your first time here, so let me explain the rules. See, we don't officially begin until the drum drops. I'm talking about
theme music. Every good hero should have some.
Read
My mind.
Read
My mind.
I basically used to live in the hood, in New York, in the Lower East Side of Manhattan. I used to be a truck driver. At some point there, I didn't want to work as a driver anymore. I started selling drugs. A few years after that, I got arrested, and I did some time in jail.
After prison, Jay had to do some time in a drug program where he contracted a rare form of pneumonia. It put him in the hospital for a couple of years.
Being so long in bed, I lost a lot of muscle mass. I lost my motor functions. I don't walk today, and I became disabled. All this happened in 2014. I used to be the type that I didn't really care much about disabled people. When I used to take the bus to go to work, there would be a couple of disabled people around the route that I used to take. As soon as the bus used to stop to pick them up, I used to be the first one in the bus. Fuck, these fucking disabled guys. This is gonna make me late now.
Hard to hear? I'm in no way condoning this way of thinking. Yet, as someone who grew up in New York and traveled to and from school and work on buses and trains, this is not an uncommon attitude. I remember being on the train headed to class and someone got sick or passed out. The conductor in these situations isn't allowed to move the train. The person, even if they're conscious, has to remain on the train until the EMTs arrive. Even the little old lady clutching her rosary beads is like, get them off the train.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
New York, New York.
And then it hit me like a smack in the face because now I am one of those people.
Following those years in the hospital, Jay needed physical rehab. He was sent to the Kohler nursing home on Roosevelt Island, just off the eastern coast of Midtown Manhattan.
When I first got to the nursing home, I didn't know anybody, of course, so I was just hanging out by myself. One of the nurses told me, go outside. There's people just like you, young like you, and you can talk to them.
Different groups of people congregated outside the home. It's a nursing home, so the majority are seniors.
But when I saw these guys, actually, one of them looked Dominican, because I'm Dominican. That attracted me more. And as soon as I approached them, they just looked at me and said, yo, come on, man, you with us. I started hanging out with them. And that's why we became friends. I identified with them. They all looked like they came from the same background that I did. The way they talk, the way they joked around with each other. It looked more like disabled people from the hood. That's why I went to them right away.
How important was that for you to have this group of black and brown brothers who were in a similar situation?
I felt really comfortable. They started taking care of me.
They did more than congregate outside the nursing home. They broke bread together. At the time, Jay was fresh out of the hospital. He didn't have any money, so they all chipped in to cover Jay. They helped each other.
Even though I don't walk, I am what is considered independent. I could move my hands, I could move around. Most of my friends are gun violence survivors, and they are paraplegics and quadriplegics. They don't really have movement in their hands and bodies. So I started helping them. Like, for example, I used to roll the blunts for them.
It goes beyond rolling the weed, putting the blunt in their mouth and lighting it. Jay would feed his brothers as well.
So we became close because of that. You know, like a family, like, I take care of you, you take care of me.
A toast to my family. Am I my brother's keeper?
Yes, I am.
Am I
While Jay and the other brothers continued to grow their friendship outside the nursing home, they didn't realize they were being watched.
A white lady called Jenny Lee Brewster was doing volunteer work here in the nursing home. She noticed that they didn't have programs or projects for younger people. It was just about the older crowd. She wanted to do something for us, and she started a writing workshop. She used to come around to ask us to go to these writing workshops. But at first we were leery. White people, probably police, no, because we out there smoking weed.
That's the sound of the police!
Weed wasn't legal in New York yet. Now we're doing something outside that we were supposed to be doing. And then we have this white woman coming around, asking questions. She was being really persistent. She kept coming, and then one day we decided to go to one of the workshops just to see what she was talking about. She started encouraging us to write about our life experiences, to write about things that we wanted to write about.
Jay's first poem tapped into his memory of living on the Lower East Side of Manhattan in 2001.
About how I felt about being part of 9/11.
It's 8:52 here in New York. I'm Bryant Gumbel. We understand that there has been a plane crash on the southern tip of Manhattan. You're looking at the World Trade Center. We understand that a plane has crashed into the World Trade Center. We don't know
Every
anything
piece
more
of
than
poetry that we do is about reality. It's about what we went through.
The group began working with poetry coaches during the workshops. The next thing you know, the group was hyped, excited about poetry.
That's when we formed the Reality Poets.
The Reality Poets, which includes the crew of brothers Jay was invited to join, and some others, are part of what became known as Open Doors NYC. According to opendoorsnyc.org, the group produces artistic collaborations, programs, and mobilizing campaigns focused on community building, disability justice, and gun violence prevention.
Hit in the neck, I ain't even feel the burn, paralyzed instantly. Praying to God, please don't take me now. I got a little girl to look after, and I'm not trying to look after her from the sky.
Open Doors is a project of the Center for Transformative Action, a 501c3 affiliated with Cornell University. What was your experience with poetry prior to disability?
No experience at all. I never wrote a poem in my life, ever. Didn't even know how to write a poem.
First, the film is developed, in much the same way as your films are developed at the chemist. Then it has to be edited.
You mean some of the film has to be cut out?
Right, some bits are thrown away, quite a lot in.
I started thinking about how a movie's made. What are the steps that go about making a movie? That always intrigued me. That was always what I was after, making a film. Documentary, feature film, fiction film, just something that we fire.
So was that an interest before disability?
After. I actually taught myself how to work with Premiere Pro. And I also taught myself how to work with After Effects. Taught myself Photoshop too. So I basically became a motion graphics artist.
I can't help but think about the importance of access to people, information, technology, all based on our personal abilities. But still, it begins with that desire to pursue our interests, which comes down to trust in ourselves.
Say hello to the camera, Pete.
What's up, y'all?
I never thought I would end up living here. I wanted to make a documentary about the Reality Poets, but I also didn't think of being a wheelchair, about everything that we went through, or that I'd be a poet, and all our accomplishments. And I definitely didn't think I'd be a filmmaker. And then in the middle of that, COVID hits.
The news breaking by the hour.
The novel coronavirus outbreak spreading across the world. Nursing homes scrambling to increase safety protocol.
We're going to need medical capacity on a scale we've never seen in the history of New York City before.
A hospital called Elmos Hospital in Queens, New York, was the epicenter of the pandemic. And they brought a patient from this hospital into my room, put him in the bed right next to me. He was coughing the whole time he was there, gasping for air. This patient had COVID. I have underlying conditions. I felt betrayed. Oh, these freaking people in this nursing home don't care about me. They don't care if I die or not.
Feeling powerless, Jay reached out to someone he could trust, someone he believed cared about him.
I called the director of Open Doors, the woman that I mentioned earlier, Jenny Lee Brewster. I told her about the situation, and she said, Jay, you are an aspiring filmmaker. Why don't we just make a film about this?
A nursing home is ground zero, but it just takes one person
with a virus, and then it is fire through dry grass.
Prior to the pandemic, Jay was working with an experienced filmmaker after receiving a grant from the New York City mayor's office.
Alexi Neofitidis was my mentor. We were working together for a few years before COVID. I called Alexi right away, and I told her about what I wanted to do, and she said, let's make this documentary together.
The film, Fire Through Dry Grass, captures the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic from the perspective of Jay and some of the other reality poets. Literally, it's from their perspective.
We got like about 4 GoPros. I started clamping them myself to their chairs. The GoPros are like a camera, and they have a really big memory card, like of about 60 gigabytes.
Jay and the crew traveled throughout the nursing home, documenting what was actually taking place.
Going to different units, going to different offices within the facility, and just recording everything.
We're talking about 2 terabytes of video. That's a lot.
We also have a lot of footage from the outside of the facility, but I couldn't come outside. So my co-director Alexi and her husband were the ones coming and recording everything from the outside. Every 2 or 3 days, I would just collect the GoPros, download it myself into my computer, and then upload it to our Google Drive. As we started talking more and more about the film, we pitched the idea to ITVS, public television, PBS channel. They liked the idea, and they actually gave us the funding for it. So we started hiring people to work with us. A few of these people, their job was to watch the footage and highlight and put aside anything that seemed important.
In addition to Zoom footage from the members of Open Doors in Conversation as they continued to meet, there's also aerial shots taken from a drone. Fire Through Dry Grass not only helped tell the story of the dangerous conditions being faced by both residents and staff during the pandemic, but it also raises the issue of disabled access to community housing.
All of us have different agendas. Most of the guys do want to move out. Some of them just here because they haven't found one yet.
Jay himself was offered multiple apartments, but they were often located in housing projects throughout the city. He didn't feel safe, and they were located far from his family in downtown Manhattan. That was years ago, before chronic kidney disease.
Which means I am on dialysis. Even though I could live in the community and just go to a dialysis center, it's much easier for me because I live here. All I gotta do is get on my chair and go to the 3rd floor and do a dialysis session.
Community housing for disabled people is not just about access to shelter. It's about having the agency to control your own life and make your own choices.
Leave me alone. I want to be free from being told how to live my life by rules, regulations, laws, bylaws, loopholes, rat holes, and assholes. Let me be free to make the decisions that best serve me.
Ultimately, the message that Fire Through Dry Grass makes clear is nursing home lives matter.
During COVID, our now director of Open Doors, Vincent Pierce, wrote a petition to get the CEO at that point of color, Robert Hughes, fired or removed from his post. We felt that he wasn't advocating for us, that he was letting the Department of Health and CMS run all over us, take our freedom away. We felt that we were basically having our human rights violated. Other organizations saw this and started supporting us. That was around the time of Black Lives Matter. They were realized to form Nursing Home Lives Matter.
Robert Hughes, the CEO of Kohler at the time, wasn't fired, but I could imagine that the pressure got to him.
The CEO retired in 2022.
What can people do if they want to be of help in terms of Nursing Home Lives Matter, like to make sure folks know about that? How can people support?
You go to opendoorsnyc.org. That's our homepage. There is a Nursing Home Lives Matter link. When you hit it, you go to the Nursing Home Lives Matter page. You can join in, leave your comments. You can leave ideas on how do you think is the best way to change nursing homes in the country, not just here in New York.
Today, despite the convenience and ease of access to dialysis treatments, Jay's open to living in the community.
If I find myself in a situation in which I get an apartment close to my family, my friends, my mother, my sister, I'll probably think about it again to move.
Do you think that would impact the reality poets if y'all are all not in the nursing home together?
No, because we also have 2 members that don't live here. Even though we do get together in person, we usually do everything virtually. Most of our meetings and events are usually through Zoom calls. But every once in a while, we do have an in-person meeting or event or project. We just take an Uber, take an Axa ride to the location and get together.
Since the making of this film, 2 of the reality poets have moved back into the community. Are there any things you learned about disability from making this film?
Well, the main one is that nursing home lives matter. Disabled people been living in what we call a system of oppression for over 100 years, in which we are treated differently, we are treated as second-hand citizens, we are not being respected, we are not given the tools, the help that we need to advance ourselves in life. That's what we are trying to break with this Nursing Home Lives Matter movement. That we matter, we are human beings too. You still have a mind, you still have a purpose, you still have a say in your life and the way you want to live your life. And that should be respected, and that should be actually enhanced, embellished by the people in power.
Do you think there's a power in film to do any of that? As a filmmaker yourself?
Of course, we have advocated a lot for disabled people through the years of us being together. We have done this movement, Nursing Home Lives Matter. We are putting disabled people in the map. Even though it has gotten better, like in Hollywood and stuff like that, in which a lot of disabled artists are being hired now. We think there's room for more. And not just actors and directors and screenwriters. Artists, poets, graphic designers, all different type of arts. I was talking to the group about making the documentary that I wanted to make originally before COVID, but the reality poets, to show people that if you try, you could do it, you could make it.
One of the things that you said is that when you became disabled, it sort of helped you discover yourself. How do you feel about that man today?
Well, I feel like I'm a better person now. Somebody that looks out for his people in pain, disabled people, people that need help. Even though I am on a wheelchair, I could use my hands. So whenever I see somebody like that can do it, I tie the shoes, I fix the pants, I fix the shirts, I fix the hats. If they need me to feed them, I will feed them. I'm more in touch with humanity now, which I wasn't really before. I used to work, like a dead-end job, driving a truck, then selling drugs. I didn't really have a purpose. And then I found my calling. I became a poet, I became a filmmaker, motion graphics artist, Photoshop. I tell people that I don't regret me being disabled. And people be like, wow, are you crazy? I'm like, yes, I don't regret it. I found myself after I became disabled.
Salutes to filmmaker, poet, and the newest addition to the Read My Mind radio family, Andres J. Molina. Shout out to all of the reality poets and everyone involved in the making of this film. Fire Through Dry Grass goes beyond the experience of disabled people in nursing homes. It's about brotherhood, community, trust in others, and finding your purpose. You can watch Fire Through Dry Grass on PBS, online, or the app. I'm looking forward to more films from Jay on the big screen or other streaming platforms.
I have ideas. We wrote a play a few years ago called Fade about 5 disabled men that own a barbershop and call her in the barbershop.
You remember how good I was at ball? I can't even teach my son. I don't even remember what it's like.
We had it in a theater for like a weekend. It was received really, really good. I'm thinking about making that into an animation film.
I like it. And if you need some extra voice talent, let a brother know. Look, don't even try to shame me. My clock is ticking. And if I'm going to put some points on the board, I have to take the shot. Listening to Jay talk about meeting the brothers outside the nursing home, their camaraderie, the opportunity to collaborate, it all makes me think I'm really still sort of in search of something. I'll talk about some of that in my final self-portrait in the next and final episode of this season, The Art of Adjustment. As I said in the opening of the episode, Details don't matter as much as you may think when it comes to the experience of adjusting. Can you relate to Jay's story? Some people focus on differences. I don't necessarily think that's bad unless you're judging or view through a narrow lens, closed to any sort of empathy. When I hear Jay's story, I think about the importance of access to explore and pursue our interests. I'm reminded that, unfortunately, these opportunities aren't afforded to everyone equally. Some neighborhoods and schools have programs that encourage young people to explore their creativity. Some families have the ability and knowledge to make opportunities for their children. Adjusting to disability can feel like time has stopped. It's like being in the middle of a game and the coach just pulls you out. You were just warming up, and now you're riding a bench to nowhere. However, time is access. For Jay, disability gave him the time to learn the craft. That put him in the position to tell the story of what was taking place in the Kohler nursing home during the pandemic. He was prepared for what became an opportunity. The older I get, the more I realize time is limited and therefore quite valuable. If you're someone new to disability and feel stagnant, consider this your chance to prepare for an opportunity waiting to present itself to you in the not-so-distant future. Hopefully it won't be during a life-threatening pandemic. But whatever it is, I hope you recognize it. And like Jay, light it up. By the way, you know what else is hot? Read My Mind Radio, baby! Let's continue to spread it. Tell your friends, enemies, and perfect strangers that they can get it wherever they listen to podcasts. Transcripts and more at readmymind.com. The only way to get there, I promise you, is by spelling it right. That's R to the E. I.
D, and that's me in the place to be.
Like my last name. Peace.